In this video, I'll be doing a little Q&A to answer some common questions about walking the Portuguese Camino, everything from what I packed to where I stayed. If you plan to walk it, or if you're just interested in learning more, then this video is for you. So let's start with the very basic. What is the Portuguese Camino? So the Portuguese Camino is one of the pilgrimage routes to Santiago de Compostela in Spain. It originally was a Catholic pilgrimage to the tomb of St. James the Apostle in Santiago, but today people walk it for all kinds of reasons, whether it's spiritual or personal growth or just wanting some adventure, whatever it is. And the Portuguese Camino is actually the second most popular route after the Camino Frances, which is the most popular one. So for the Portuguese Camino, most people start from either Lisbon or Porto. I started from Porto and I took the central route. So there's the central route and then there's the coastal route. The coastal route goes along the coast. The central route, which is the one I did, is the more traditional one, and that one follows inland roads, rural paths, and small towns. Okay, next question. How long is it and how many days did it take us to finish? So the Portuguese central route from Porto to Santiago is 240 kilometers, which is about 150 miles. Most people walk it in 10 to 14 days, depending on your pace or your rest days. We did it in 12 days, and to me that felt good because we had some more rest in the beginning, but we made sure to keep moving every day. So now, what did I pack for the Portuguese Camino? I actually made a video about this, so you can go check it out. And I filmed that video after I completed the hike, like literally right after I finished it. So it's very accurate because it includes everything that I actually used. And one thing that I do want to mention here that I mentioned in the what I packed video is this is probably the most obvious thing, be sure to have good shoes, be sure to have good socks. I talk about what materials are best in that video. Be sure to bring moleskin for blisters because you will get blisters, and be sure to have a good backpack with hip straps. So the next question is, do you need to train or prepare physically before going? For me, I did not train and I did not prepare. I was already traveling and one of my friends invited me along to do this walk. I didn't really know what it was, but I said yes. I didn't do any preparing for it at all. And it was honestly fine. If you're like a decently fit person, if you do some walking, some hiking, I really think you can just do it without doing any kind of training or anything. Your body will adjust. Like it's kind of hard to prepare for this unless you start like walking 12 miles a day or something. But even then, like, I really don't think it's the type of thing you can prepare for unless you're really out of shape or something. So yeah, your body adjusts. In the beginning, in the first few days, you're gonna be sore. Your legs are gonna be sore, your shoulders are gonna be sore, but your body adjusts. And that's what I thought was one of the coolest things about it is like, the further you go, the easier it gets, and you can like physically feel your body getting stronger. So I would say as long as you're decently in shape, you really don't need to prepare for it. Just make sure to bring only what you need, don't overpack, and make sure to have good shoes. So now let's talk about accommodation. Where did we stay along the way? There's a few options here. What we did is we mostly stayed in hostels and then sometimes albergues. So what is the difference? Albergues are specifically for pilgrims who are walking the Camino. They're usually a bit cheaper. They're very basic. So it's like dorm rooms and shared bathrooms and yeah, very basic. Another thing with albergues is they don't really allow you to book in advance. So if you're staying in one, you have to make sure to leave early in the morning so that you arrive in the afternoon and so that there's still spots left for you to stay in one. And that's kind of one of the reasons why we preferred hostels, because hostels are more flexible. You can book in advance. They're a bit more, you could say they're a bit more comfortable. They're a bit more modern. Like your beds will usually have outlets next to them to charge your phone, things like that. They're not as strict about rules. And it's not just pilgrims in the hostel. Like anyone can stay in the hostel. So those are some of the key differences. In general, albergues are a lot cheaper, especially the public ones. So if you're trying to save money, you can stay at the public albergues. But like I said, you have to make sure to wake up early in the morning and get there on time. And that's something that my friend and I just didn't really want to deal with. We kind of liked being able to take our time in the morning and not feel rushed, and knowing that we're going to have a place to stay that night. So now, how did we find where to stay and did we have to book in advance? So I will say the blog Stingy Nomads, I'm going to link this in the description below. They have a great resource. They have a link to a PDF that lists all of not all, but it has a good selection of accommodation for each leg of the Portuguese Camino. So if you're doing the central route, whatever route you're doing, they have a list of the accommodation you can stay in, as well as how expensive it is. So we mostly used that. I found it very helpful. Shout out to them for providing that resource. They have great resources and information on their website. And aside from that, we would kind of just check Google Maps on our phone wherever we're staying and to just see what hostels are in the area, and then we would usually just find the cheapest ones. There were a couple times when we didn't do hostels or we didn't book in advance, and if you watch my video of the walk, I have a video showing what the whole walk was like. Yeah, we had a couple interesting situations where we didn't know where we were staying. At one point, we came across a public albergue our first night, and that ended up being really fun. We actually thought we were never going to find somewhere to stay, but we ran into another pilgrim and ended up finding our way to that albergue, which was great. And then another time we came across, it was like raining and we had nowhere to go and we weren't going to make it to the next city in time. So we luckily saw a poster on a bus stop with an option for a guest house, and we ended up staying there for the night. So after all of that, we were kind of like, let's just book in advance. It makes things easier. You don't have to book in advance, but I would recommend doing it just to kind of take that weight off your shoulders. Especially if you're not someone who's going to be waking up super early and getting to the public albergue by the afternoon. If you want to kind of take your time, I would recommend just booking a cheap hostel in advance. You don't have to do it super far in advance. You can just do it the night before or even the day of. And we never really had any difficulties finding a space when we did it that way. Oh, and one more thing that I'll mention is you really don't have to, like I said, you don't have to book far in advance for a hostel, but it also depends the season and what part of the route you're at, because I did find that as we got closer to Santiago, since the crowds tend to be bigger, there's less places to stay. So you do kind of want to just be conscious of that there's going to be less options and maybe less space the closer you get to Santiago. Okay, now let's talk about money. So on average, how much did I spend a day? I would say that on average, I spent around 30 to 50 euros a day, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on accommodation. Usually that was the biggest cost per day. So the accommodation could be around 20 to 30 euros, sometimes more, sometimes less. Like I said, the public albergues are super cheap, but then you have some hostels that can be a bit pricier. So you're paying for the accommodation and then the cost of food and snacks on top of that. And then in addition, depending on the day, you might be doing laundry one day. That can be a bit more, like an extra euro or two. And then if there's anything else you need, like if you have to stop in the pharmacy for some first aid items or something like that, hopefully this won't be the case for you. But if you're like me and you have to buy a brand new pair of sneakers on day 2, your costs can shoot up a bit. But I would recommend, at least, if nothing else, at least prepare your footwear for this, because that's one thing I did not prepare. And I will say it's the type of thing that like you can spend more or less depending on what you want to do. Like if you're trying to do it on the super cheap, you can stay in only the public albergues, you can cook your own food, you can not eat out, like just keep things super low cost. That is possible, and you'll be spending a lot less every day. But we kind of liked to have a balance. Like we kept the cost pretty low, but we also liked the comfort of staying in hostels and just having the flexibility, like I said, of not having to rush to our destination. And also being able to, like, the cities are cool that you're stopping in along the way. And it's kind of nice to taste the local cuisine sometimes. So like stopping in a restaurant for dinner or something, we didn't want to be super strict with that. So I think overall we had a pretty good balance of comfort, fun, and budget. Okay, next question. Do you need cash, and are ATMs easy to find? Yes, I would definitely take some cash. I didn't take a ton, but I probably took about 100 euros in the beginning, and I don't think I had to stop at an ATM once. I was mostly using my card pretty much the whole time, but definitely have cash because there are some places where it's cash only, especially if you're in more rural areas. Certain albergues, you can only pay with cash. So the good thing is that there's some cities along the way, so you can always stop at an ATM in one of the bigger cities if you need cash. Okay, next question. What time of year did you go, and would you recommend it? So I walked the Portuguese Camino in spring of 2024 from April 24th to May 5th. And I would recommend going around that time for a few reasons. The first one being that the temperature was like perfect. Before we left, I was actually worried that I was gonna get too cold because I didn't really pack many warm clothes at all. But I never got too cold because when you're hiking, you're literally moving nonstop. So you just can't really get too cold. At the same time, I also never got too hot because it wasn't summer yet and it rained a lot. If you watched my video of us doing the walk, it rained most of the days while we did it. But I would actually prefer having the rain to having too much heat, I think, because the rain wasn't that bad. Aside from the only annoying thing was like having to dry your shoes at the end of the day. Aside from that, if you have a good rain jacket and a good waterproof pack for your bag, it's really not bad with the rain. And another benefit of doing it in the springtime is that I think there's fewer crowds. Some people say the spring is the busiest time, but it wasn't super crowded when we did it. Maybe because of the weather, maybe people knew that, I'm not sure, but I've heard that in the summer months, it's even busier. So like June, July, August, because that's when people have their summer breaks. So I imagine that in the summer months, it's hotter and you have more people. So I would definitely recommend doing it in the spring if you don't mind the possibility of it raining. Okay, now let's answer a couple questions about the journey itself. The first one being, how did we navigate? This was pretty simple. The Portuguese Camino central route is pretty well marked. So you have yellow arrows and you have yellow scallop shells pointing you along the path to Santiago. So if you want to, you can just follow those the whole way and they will take you there. However, of course, you want a backup plan in case you don't see one, in case no one else is around to show you where the next one is, in case you somehow get lost or something like that. So we just downloaded offline maps on Google on our phone so that we can, if we ever needed to, we could just check the route on our phone without having any internet connection. Navigation was pretty simple. And then the final question is, what was the most difficult part of the Camino? This was my first Camino, and I will say that for me, the most difficult part was like day 2. And I spoke to a lot of other pilgrims, and they said the same thing. Basically, the first few days were the hardest for them, like in terms of your body just adjusting to it. Like if you watch my video about the walk, the first couple days were just, my legs were so sore, my shoulders were sore. I was still figuring out my makeshift hip strap, like I needed new shoes. I was just kind of adjusting to everything, but especially physically, your body just needs a few days in the beginning to adjust. But then it's really cool because after that, you feel yourself getting stronger and then the miles get easier and then it just flies by. So if you're thinking about walking the Camino, I would say just do it. Everyone who does it seems to love it. I know people who have done it so many times. Some people do the same route multiple times. I would definitely do it again. I would probably do a different route just to mix it up. But yeah, let me know in the comments below if you plan on hiking it. I would love to hear. And that's it for the Q&A. If you have any additional questions, just let me know. I'm happy to answer anything. If you're not already, go ahead and subscribe so that you can see more videos like this. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.